Welcome back. This is presentation 4 of Chapter 8, Political Parties and Interest Groups. This presentation and the next one really got to do 5 for this chapter. It's really 2 chapters in one. So we're going to do 2 presentations, one shorter, one the 5th one will be a little bit shorter on interest groups. So let's jump in. So there are different types of interest groups. Unsurprisingly, economic interest groups tend to be the most cohesive. I think in the slide it says the strongest, but and I think cohesive and influential is what we mean by the strongest. Businesses and corporations often form trade associations and other businesses with other businesses in their industry to lobby for more business-friendly rules and regulations. Corporate and trade associations comprise nearly half of all the entities in the Washington Representatives Directory. The Washington Representatives Directory, I should note, is basically a list, a directory that all lobbyists have to sign into. If an interest group is going to go and try to influence the federal government, they have to register with that, Washington Representatives Directory. Financial resources of the business lobby is incredibly formidable. Corporations, trade associations, and business associations spend $34 for every dollar spent. This is a carryover of the slide from number 3, which that lower bullet part of it was obscured. So it's a significant amount of power and influence that interest groups, that business interest groups enjoy. Labor unions are active in lobbying government. They organize both private and public sector workers. Now, what's the difference between a public sector worker? A private sector worker would be, for example, auto workers. Okay, a public sector worker is, for example, a police or firefighter union. Some unions, like the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU, organize workers in both the private and public sectors. Unions constitute currently less than 1% of organized interest in Washington. That was very different. In the middle of the 20th century, the Democratic Party was effectively a party of unions, and the Republican Party steadily attacked unions and have attrited their the membership through a series of what are known as right-to-work laws. Happy to talk about that offline if you want. Federal and state right-to-work laws have decimated union membership from, again, a high of 35% in 1955 to a low of 6.4% in 2018. Union members tend to be highly active. They tend to vote at very high rates. And again, they are the folks that, these are the folks that represent, the folks that shower after work as opposed to people that shower before work, if you understand that metaphor. The more successful, professional associations and citizens groups, again, they include the American Bar Association, the American Medical Association, the National Realtors Association. Americans working, again, in specific occupations that require a professional license oftentimes form those kinds of associations, and they constitute about 5.4% of the groups that actually lobby the federal government. Physicians, lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, dentists, and even college faculty oftentimes form those kinds of associations. Some professional associations are more successful than others. As I just mentioned, for example, the American Bar Association, there's an old saying, in a nation, in a nation of laws, lawyers rule. They're the ones that are often in the position to draft laws and to influence how laws are interpreted. Citizens groups are open to ordinary citizens, with the largest and most successful being the American Association of Retired People. They have over 40 million members. And again, because they make the cost of entry relatively low and because they are widely acknowledged as an incredibly effective lobbying group for the rights and the privileges of the elderly. Some citizen groups are identified as ideological groups. Groups like the Christian Coalition, the National Taxpayers Unions, and NARAL, Pro-Choice America. These are examples of ideological groups. They're organized in terms of pushing for a particular ideological agenda. Citizens group comprise about 14% of groups with lobbying offices in Washington, D.C. So why do interest groups form? There is this thing called collective goods. Again, these are the goods that government provides widely, and then that creates something known as the free rider problem, and that is again this idea that people may benefit from an action by government without actually participating in it. That's sort of an optimal outcome, right? Where you get a benefit but you don't do anything for it. Interest groups overcome the free rider problem. Again, the problem with the free rider problem is that if everyone is free riding, then collective action fails. So interest groups overcome the free rider problem by providing selective benefits available only to group members. And there are a variety of different kinds of selective benefits, including informational benefits, and they're typically distributed via emails and conferences and training programs and the like. You can also get material benefits, like totes or mugs or hats or whatever, MAGA hats or whatever, discounts on travel, gun club membership, things like that. Solidary benefits are, again, the benefits of feeling like you are a member of a group. And again, those are very important, for a lot of people, that sense of belonging. Starting an advocacy group, Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, basically comes up with these 5 basic rules, right? Figure out what you're passionate about and get educated on the issue. Decide on the scope and the goal and the objective that you're trying to accomplish. One of the biggest problems that people have in politics is thinking that they can do everything all at once, and you have to recognize that you have to get laser focused on 1 or 2 issues. That's how you get a movement started, and that's how you can achieve success. And then, once you get that, then you can start thinking about the next phase of your movement, because again, the whole point of a movement is to keep it going. Third, you think about the people you need around you. You're going to need people that have a certain kind of expertise, because the one thing that all interest groups need is money. They need access to money, and they need access to legislators, and so you have to have people that know those kinds of things. Number 4, figure out your group's branding, right? What kind of image do you want to project? And then 5th, keep going when you face defeats. I mean, the reality is in politics, our constitutional system is designed to frustrate change. So you have to be wary of that, and you have to be willing to work through, having doors shut in your face. The last rules talked about, realize that change typically comes in small steps, like that earlier point I made. You have to first of all say, what's the most important thing that we want? Let's focus on that. And then let's think in lexical terms. What's second? What's that second thing that we want to get done, right? What interest groups tend not to be represented? Political scientists posit this idea of pluralism, which says that all interests are free to compete for influence over government, and that's sort of the dominant perspective of most American government scholars, that we are a pluralist society. But critics have noticed that some interests are far more successful in articulating and advancing their views than others. A mid-century political scientist by the name of E. Schattschneider, great name, isn't it? The flaw in the pluralist heaven is that the heavenly chorus sings with a strong upper-class accent. And that kind of reflects this idea that people with money are more likely to be listened to than, more likely to be heard by, people in office than the poor. So which interests are oftentimes shut out? Well, again, it reflects this notion that people without money, young people, low-income people, certain minorities who might actually also be again, not having a lot of money. And one of the problems is, again, if you're a young person, you might just be a little bit cynical about politics. Say, look, it's not for me, right? The system is set up not to benefit me, so why should I, why should I try to make changes? That sense of, again, remember we talked about efficacy in earlier discussions. That lack of efficacy, that apathy, if you will, is a major obstacle to people getting things, getting things done. So what do interest groups do? Again, the quest for political influence or power can take on a lot of different forms. Most established and well-funded groups often adopt what are known as insider strategies of influence, and that, again, insider strategies require access to key decision makers, and that includes, getting lobbyists who can get their foot in the door, use of advertising and public relations campaigns, and then the use of lawyers to litigate cases in court. Civil rights groups and other groups that may be less well established will often resort to what are known as outsider strategies, and that includes, again, going public through protests and demonstrations. They don't necessarily cost a lot of money, but they can be very effective at kind of raising the profile of what a group is trying to achieve. Last slide, again, this is sort of how you go about influencing Congress, right? First of all, you want to go to the media to try and mobilize public opinion. You want to go to other members of Congress through direct lobbying or gaining other forms of of access. Go to constituents, right? Activate, do letter writing campaigns or whatever. You want to focus on sometimes, other members of Congress. Sometimes you want to focus on congressional staff. But again, this kind of highlights this sense in which there are a lot of different avenues to try and exploit in order to get your voice heard by members of Congress. And if you don't, again, if you're not persistent, you're not going to be effective. So that's it for this slide. I'm going to conclude with an abbreviated slide. We're going to continue our discussion of interest groups. I'll see you next time.